It's a new narrative of the human story. It's an inquiry into how a certain set of factors, our numbers, our population, and women's decisions or ability to make decisions about when they'll have children have influenced our past and will influence our future. This is a book that's designed to be a fresh, new look at a problem people puzzle about for a long time, namely human numbers, human population, and what impact they have on the world, and why it's particularly an issue in the world right now, what's going on right now in the world that makes population growth important. And its basic message is that population doesn't have to grow. It's not something we need to control. As a matter of fact, it doesn't work to control population. Can't be done. What we need to do, in effect, is hand over control, give control over their own bodies to women and over their own reproduction to women so that women are in control of that. And by the individual decisions that women make about their own family size, about their own childbearing, when to bear a child, when not to, whether to do it at all, women naturally and spontaneously will eventually end the world's population growth. There's lots of evidence that women have thought about how to prevent births. We have records of contraception going back to Egyptian hieroglyphics. How does the interest that women have, and probably have always had, in being able to be sexually active without necessarily getting pregnant and having a child, how does that relate to the interest that people have had generally in maintaining a balance with nature? Women are perpetually at the front lines of population change, and yet it's amazing how rarely people who look at population also look at what's happening in women's lives, what's happening in women's own ability to manage or control their own fertility. So this is a book that actually considers women as population growers and, conversely, as potential population shrinkers. There are a number of places in the world now, and there have been a few in history, where what women wanted was to have fewer than 2 children. And in situations where that happens for a while, population tends to shrink. That's certainly happening in Japan and Europe right now. This book argues that that's not bad. That's what women want. Let women do what they want in this regard, and it's probably going to have good impacts, certainly on our environmental problems. And there are probably many more places than we even know where, if left to their own devices, contraceptive or otherwise, women will have no children, 1 child, maybe 2, maybe 3, but on average around 2 or fewer, and as a result populations will begin to shrink. Suddenly the idea of no growth or an end to growth doesn't sound so crazy anymore. It sounds, I think, to a lot more people than it ever did that it might not be a bad idea if we could figure it out how to end the growth of consumption of natural resources, especially fossil fuels, and yet still have a decent quality of life. I think it strikes most people as a pretty good idea, particularly if you can get there in a way that accords with people's values. And this book argues that you absolutely can, and it has to do with the lives of women. I think more and more people are realizing when they look around at problems like climate change, the cost of gasoline and energy, the cost of food is pretty close quarters right now in a pretty full world. And population is pretty clearly part of that. I think most people know that the sheer numbers of people in the world have something to do with why we're facing a lot of the economic and energy and environmental problems we're facing right now. It's as though every step we take or every adjustment we make to bring the environment into balance or bring energy prices back into balance causes some other problem some other place. It's because there's so many of us, frankly. There are just so many people that it's next to impossible to find easy solutions that will satisfy everybody's needs. And that's obviously not an argument to suddenly reduce the world's population. That's not going to happen. There's no way that could happen for any positive, in any positive way. But it's a reason to think about whether the world can continue to add several more billions of people in an equitable, fair way while we succeed at solving all these problems. This is a book that suggests that among all the other things we have to do, and we have to do a lot on consumption, on energy technology, on environmental technology, on solving some of the world's inequities and social problems. But one of the things we probably ought to be thinking about is the future of the world's population. And we have an incredibly wonderful way to approach that issue, which is to empower women, educate women, allow women to make their own decisions in life, to self-actualize, and to choose for themselves when to have children. This book argues that when we do that for women, when we make sure that they have that power and can use it to make those decisions for their own lives, population growth will on its own fall, I argue, to zero or even to a slight gradual decline, which will overall be good for most, if not all, the world's problems. I'm really excited to have been able to do this book. There haven't been that many books about population. Most of them don't sell that well, at least since the 1960s with Paul Ehrlich's The Population Bomb. It's not an issue that a lot of people are willing to take a risk on. I'm pleased that Island Press was interested in a book about population and willing to listen to my ideas and thought we could make a book about it. And I think it's typical of the way they're getting important books out about really critical human issues that need to be addressed, especially in terms of the environment. And for them to be able to see how closely population growth is connected to all the other environmental problems that their catalog of books looks at and addresses and tries to get people to read about and think about was really a gift to me. And I think it's important for the world as a whole. I think seeing this book being published by an important, significant publisher like Island Press is good for the reading public, just to simply get exposed to population as something that ought to be considered as one of the big issues on the table of the issues we talk about when we're thinking about our children's future, when we're thinking about the world's future. And I'm proud that it's out there, at least rattling around and hopefully being read and being discussed by people who go to bookstores and libraries and want to know what the latest thinking about the world is.